When Bryan Kohberger was first arrested, two different women came to law enforcement to share their experiences with him privately. One of them was a girl who had a Tinder account and said that she was talking to Bryan Kohberger on there, and another was an exotic dancer who had a really uncomfortable experience with a guy who she thought was Bryan Kohberger. So the girl from Tinder said that she had matched with Bryan Kohberger in September or October of 2022. She told authorities that she was unable to match with anyone in her area, so she paid for the additional Tinder feature, which allowed her to move a pin anywhere in the country to see if she could match with someone somewhere else. She said she matched with Bryan Kohberger a short time later and began to talk to him. She said that he told her he was a criminology student at Washington State. The two communicated via Tinder and planned for Kohberger to visit her when he came home for Christmas break that year. She said that she had a friend who had been unalived in her town a couple of years prior, and she said that she discussed this with Kohberger. The conversation turned to horror movies and which ones she liked the most. She told Kohberger she liked the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. She said that this prompted Kohberger to ask what she thought would be the worst way to die. She said she thought it would be by a knife. She then said that Kohberger asked her something to the effect of, like a K-bar. She said that she didn't know what that was and had to Google it. She said that she eventually stopped talking to Bryan because his questions made her uncomfortable. Now, this tip was submitted in March of 2024, so well over a year after Bryan Kohberger was arrested. She said that she had tried to submit this tip earlier on, but she said that no one reached out to her. Authorities, however, looked into it and said that there was no record of her ever trying to submit a tip prior to this day in March. They also asked if they could look through her Tinder, and she said that she no longer had access to that specific profile. So there was nothing essentially to corroborate what she was saying. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's lying, but there's nothing to indicate that she's telling the truth either. This next tip was also unable to be corroborated and proven to have been Bryan Kohberger that this exotic dancer was interacting with, but it seems like it very well could have been Kohberger. But there's a lot of people that are just like him when it comes to like social cues and stuff, that it could not be him either. Now, this specific tip was reported in January of 2023, so shortly after Bryan Kohberger's arrest. She was not specifically interviewed until March 3rd, 2023, however. She said that she was working as a dancer around 2018-2019. It's about a 2-hour drive from Bryan Kohberger's place with his parents. She stated that she was unsure of which of those 2 years the encounter took place, though. She stated that she came into work on what she described was a slow day and noticed only one man seated next to the stage alone. She stated that she got on stage and began her dance when she noticed the man seemed to be talking to himself. She stated the man made her feel uneasy, but she continued her dance. She said that during her dance, she heard the man state something about wanting to unalive people. She said she thought she misheard him, so she did not acknowledge the statement until she heard him say it again. She said she could not remember exactly what he said, but thought it was something to the effect of wanting to unalive. She said that after the second comment, she jokingly asked the man who he was going to unalive, to which he replied something to the effect of, "Whoever I want." She then offered him a private dance, to which he accepted, and during the dance, privately, he was directing her to look him in the eyes the entire time, and then proceeded to ask her personal questions like where she lived and stuff like that. After this, she said that he left and she never saw him there again. Now, again, authorities were unable to corroborate this tip, but I do think that if this was Bryan Kohberger, it's very possible that this woman could have been a victim. If he was thinking about unaliving people back then, and he's asking her where she lived, and we know that this guy has a history of breaking into people's homes, and knowing what he did to Ethan, Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana, I think that it's very possible that he could have tried to unalive prior. He could have had the smallest interaction with Maddie, asked her where she lived, she could have said King Road, and he could have went to that area to stalk her. So definitely food for thought. The prosecution said that they couldn't find a connection between Kohberger and any of the victims. They could not prove that Kohberger was ever at the Mad Greek restaurant where Maddie worked, but they also couldn't disprove it either.